That's right, yeah, I got an agenda, and it's your money that I'm gonna spend, yeah. Am I real? Well, I guess it depends where you're at now and how it was that you got there. And when I get around to giving my reply, they'll be sugar-coated, overloaded, super-loaded, bare-faced lies.
Too often, I'll say bare-faced lies. I'll say bare-faced lies. I'll say bare-faced lies. Again, bare-faced lies. Too often, I'll say bare-faced lies. I'll say bare-faced lies. I'll say bare-faced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you feel we never wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced lies.
Bare-faced lies. Bare-faced lies.
Hey son, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced lies.
Bare-faced lies. Bare-faced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Bare-faced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get sugar-coated, overloaded, postal-loaded, bare-faced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda, and it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very, very good evening. Monday, the 6th of January 2025. My name is Raja MIAH. This is the second of a series of Recusant 9 transmissions. I'm hoping I can keep them going every day if possible up to when I get kicked out of my space and my daughter takes over the living room and the internet connection. So that's where my life's up to. I hope you found yesterday of value. I hope those of you who are new to me found that I am both a serious and committed man who has been on a journey for 6 years and has refused to surrender the people I call my own. And increasingly more and more see me exactly as that. And I wanted to reiterate a couple of points before we get on with this evening. I know there's a few of you who are new. There's only me here, so if I miss something on the chat, it's because there's a screen to my left. I'm looking at a screen in front of me, and there's a computer, and I have no idea what half the stuff does. Okay, so that's where I'm up to with this. If the transmission cuts off, to stay where you are. It'll be my internet connection at my end, and I'll get that solved, so it'll come back. The broadcasts are all now free to air. It's too important an issue, so everything I share is completely free to air, and I'm dependent on the generosity and goodwill of people to simply, if they find value, there's a link to a PayPal account at the top or a Buy Me a Coffee account at the top, and if you can, please contribute whatever you can. We've been doing this for the last 6 years, and from the beginning I have been nothing other than 100% community funded. So what you're seeing in government, playing out in government and playing out across the world, because it all started, this chapter started because of that letter that we shared on New Year's Day from the safeguarding minister for girls, Jess Phillips, refusing to support a public inquiry into the gang rape of girls in Oldham. That's where all of this started. That is the direct consequence of 6 years of our unwavering commitment to justice. I want to recap on one thing before I move forward, because I've seen the names of people here. When the police dawn raided my house, took away all my digital devices, and essentially left me as a sitting target to be killed, I had a community reach out to support me. First of all, there was a lady called Karen, who's now passed, I'm afraid, died of cancer, gave me the money to buy a laptop so I could get broadcasting again. I think it was her savings for a will or something like that. Lives on the white working class estate of Fitton Hill, for those of you who know Oldham. My friend, David Gidman, who's here. Super Gidman, I think, is his name here. His daughter wiped her phone And for 18 months, I used an iPhone with a Harry Potter case. I did well with that, David. Plenty of people stopped to talk to me about the Harry Potter phone case. Here he is. And without that phone, I would have been in trouble. So this is what took place, and this is how we've got here. I am merely one person. Yes, I lead from the front. I am merely one person. And there is a team behind me, a team of dedicated people. And the country is where it is. In fact, the debate across the world is where it is because of a group of working class people from a northern mill town. And I need you to understand something very simple. Regardless of what anyone says, in the end, it is ordinary people who make the difference. And we are just ordinary people. There's something I just want to pick up on and just find her because I didn't see her yesterday. This is my friend Tracy. She feels this. I've never met you, Tracy, have I, in real life? I don't think. If I have, my apologies. She feels things and is really passionate. And we've been on a journey together, and many people have backstabbed us for their own gain. And those of you who know me, and those of you who will come to know me, will know I'm not interested in fame or fortune. And those who've backstabbed us, let it go. Let them do what they want to do. Because in the end, it does not matter whether I am remembered in any of this. All that matters is we get the justice that we have so desperately fought for, and it increasingly looks like, as a consequence of the people of Oldham, justice is coming not just to here, but justice will be coming across the country. And that's enough for me. And it should be enough for every one of you. So let it go. Let them do what they want to do. Let them tell their stories. Let them recreate what took place. And let them spin the webs of deceit. We know who we are. We know what we are. And we know the difference we made. And the sacrifice it took. Okay, done. Please. It's my friend Faye, who joined us. I think he joined us about a year ago, didn't you? Or 18 months ago, Faye. Goes to the council meetings. I'd like to now thank Maya Tushi. I was on Tushi TV. He's an interesting man, isn't he? He's been on his own journey. Work ethic, relentless work ethic. I don't know how he does it. I'm left drained after these broadcasts, these transmissions, and he does 3, 4, 5 a day. So I don't know how he does it. He was kind enough to have me on his channel. I'm with Richard tomorrow. Someone sent me a message last night saying, oh, this guy's a racist, that guy's an anti-Semite, that guy's something else. Guys, my position. So there's no ambiguity. And I've had this conversation with my family. Because what happens to me, often the backlash, my dishes and the backlash has been on my family, and there's a story I still also need to share about that. And my position is simple. I speak to everyone. It is not for me to decide who to speak to and who not to speak to. I speak to everyone. because this is a story that is more important than me, than you, or any one of us, and everyone needs to know. And if someone wants to spin it in a certain way, let them spin it in a certain way. I know where my purpose comes from. During my darkest moments, when I was on police bail, my car had been carjacked. My sister phoned me, distraught. At the time, my mother was still alive. She lives with her husband, in the same house with my mother. 2 small children, sitting baby seats in the back of a car. Someone had tampered, I think, with her husband's brakes or something on his car. They tampered with his car, and my sister went out to check her car, and that car had also been tampered with to cause them harm. They contacted Greater Manchester Police repeatedly. Greater Manchester Police clearly know the link, because they'd already been to that house to put in safety measures in case it was attacked because of me. Greater Manchester Police refused to come out and investigate. There is so much that has gone on in all of this. And if I seem tired to some people, that is why. Because what's happening now is like a weight off my shoulder. It's a burden I've been carrying, it's a weight off my shoulder. Thank you so much for the invite. I very much enjoyed seeing that there was a march. I'm in London. I've committed to going down to, and it was prior to this, otherwise I would have definitely been. I've committed to go down to do a podcast with the Heretics podcast team. So that's where I'm going on Saturday. There were some dates and I could do it later in the month, but I gave up time with my daughter so I could get down to London to do this. For me, that's just one of the little bits of treasured time that I have, and I realised I needed to give up that time because this is timely, and I needed to go down there and do that podcast whilst all this was going on. Yeah, it's Andrew Gold, yeah. So his team reached out to me. And yeah. Okay. Last night, for those of you who are perhaps used to the clickbaity sort of stuff, it's not me. I'm not interested. If I tell you I'm going to say something, I'll say it. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. I hope you got the information last night, clear information linking Angela Rayner to the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in our town. 3 clear ways. One is her putting her name to a statement and Commons letterheaded paper backing the inquiry and the nonsense that it was, thorough and all of that sort of stuff. Clear. She backed an inquiry that has now since been exposed as a cover-up. That, in a functioning democracy, in a party that really had any morals, would be a resignation matter for the Deputy Prime Minister. It makes it worse for her because of her links with Oliver Ryan and his links with Oldham and his role at the time, who's also a Tameside councillor, one of her inner circle, for those who know the Labour Party world. And the no getting away from her employment of Dawn Marsden, who's the husband of Carl Marsden, husband and wife team. One worked in the council, one worked in the Oldham Evening Chronicle. And between the council and the Evening Chronicle, no one reported, neither reported on the shisha bars being used to lure young people, young girls in, were her groomed and gang raped and then trafficked. Today, well, the shame of what we released, and I understand this world, so I am sharing with you things that I knew was going to happen, but I wanted to make sure it happened before you saw it. You've seen how GB News have been leading on this, and hello to my friends at GB News who are clearly watching this. Charlie was apparently in Oldham today, he didn't call me. With me releasing the Angela Rayner information in the way I have, they won't run with it. Because there are other games being played here. You just have to accept that. So if you found value in the Angela Rayner link, then please share it. Please tell your friends. Here is the Deputy Leader of His Majesty's government, neck deep in the cover-up. Today, there's some bread and butter stuff I need to go through with my normal community, and you might find some value in that, where I analyse what Starmer said, I analyse what some of the ministers said. It won't take long. This evening's transmission won't be anywhere near as long as yesterday. I want to go through what a public inquiry really is, and what the additional powers are. And we've got a document we produced a couple of years ago that one of the independent teams used to get elected, and then once they got elected, they ditched us. Didn't you, Maggie Hurley? But the document I produced, we got them elected, and I'll share that with you so you can make some sense of it. And of course, I'll put it online so you can use it. But what we'll get to at the end, I believe, is the end. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but will be the incrimination of the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. And for those of you who are new to me, those who've known me will happily share with you. I'm not in the business of making things up, because in this journey we've been on, there has been absolutely no need to make anything up. Okay, let's hear Keir Starmer.
Those attacking Jess Phillips, who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend, not protecting victims. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more than they've even dreamt about when it comes to protecting victims of sexual abuse throughout her entire career. And so just as I took on the criminal justice system and the institutions when I was chief prosecutor, I'm prepared to call out this for what it is. We've seen this playbook many times, whipping up of intimidation and threats of violence, hoping that the media will amplify it. Now, Jess Phillips does not need me or anybody else to speak on her behalf. But when the poison of the far right leads to serious threats to Jess Phillips and others, then in my book, a line has been crossed. I enjoy the cut and thrust of politics, the robust debate that we must have, but that's got to be based on facts and truth, not on lies, not on those who are so desperate for attention that they're prepared to debase themselves and their country. So this government will get on with the job of protecting victims, including child sexual abuse, mandatory reporting, accelerating the processes. But what I won't tolerate is this discussion and debate based on lies without calling it out. What I won't tolerate is politicians jumping on the bandwagon simply to get attention, when those politicians sat in government for 14 long years, tweeting, talking, but not doing anything about it. Now so desperate for attention that they're amplifying what the far right is saying. So that's what I say about Jess Phillips.
What the Prime Minister doesn't say about Jess Phillips is why she blocked a public inquiry into the grooming and gang rape of children. So Jess Phillips might have done 1,000 times more good for women in the past. But on this matter, on this very issue, Jess Phillips wrote a letter late, as an afterthought perhaps, and a letter that not only denied a public inquiry, it misled people, or attempted to mislead people, into why a local inquiry was okay. It wasn't, and you'll see why. And he is like a nodding dog in the background. For those who also don't know me, I used to vote Labour until Raja. Louise, to my shame, now looking back, I was a paid up Labour Party member until they expelled me because I would not shut up about the cover up of the gang rape of little white girls. I was a paid up Labour Party member until the Labour Party expelled me. Have a look at this next video, it's very short.
Politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth, and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right, then that affects politics, because a robust debate can only be based on the true facts.
That is our Prime Minister saying that those who are calling for an inquiry are jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. That is an inquiry where the most powerful man in this country, the Prime Minister, our elected leader, who after defending Jess Phillips claims our purpose is the bandwagon of the far right. He then talks about honesty, decency and truth. Now I've shared with you the truth of what these people did to me. And survivor after survivor has shared with you their truths of how they were failed. When we started on this journey, I could not believe the stories I was hearing of the cover-up. And I believed that a lot of it was, or had been perhaps, a far-right conspiracy. And I had my own eyes opened on this journey. And here we have the Prime Minister making reference to the bandwagon of the far right. Now you need to understand what he's up to. His playbook here is the same playbook from Southport. And he is trying to provoke a response from people in such a way where that response leads to violence on the street, and they can then use that to cover this up. That is the strategy at play here. That is my honest opinion, my analysis of what's taking place here. He's not just demonizing every one of you, me, as far right. What he's doing is trying to antagonize and provoke people. You'll have seen the breaking news on Sky about someone arrested or charged for sending malicious communications to Jess Phillips. What the headline doesn't say is that malicious communication dates back prior to this year. It's last year at some point. And idiots have been sending messages to politicians for as long as I know, calling them names. Not charging at this time was on purpose to try and get us to shut up. And the headline from Sky was on purpose to try and get people to think, oh yeah, she's having a bad time, isn't it? So it's not right. This Elon Musk is not right. The truth is, Jess Phillips is the Minister for Girls, safeguarding girls. And Jess Phillips refused a public inquiry and then went on some nonsense about a local inquiry, which the Prime Minister now doesn't seem to support, because the Prime Minister now seems to say the time for inquiries is over. And the world to be watching all of this, I urge you to maybe share the like and share perhaps, yeah. I'm sure many of you have come to this analysis yourself, but I wanted, I have got a duty to a community that I've been educating for a while.
Those attacking Jess Phillips,
I want to show you something else.
who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend.
Just say, in that vein, a word on the Prime Minister's comments this morning. It is not far right to stand up for victims of mass rape. And smearing people.
Order.
It's those concerns.
Shadows. People want to hear the statement.
Smearing people who raise those issues is exactly how this ended up getting covered up in the first place.
That is the Shadow Home Secretary, Conservative guy. You can tell with the nice suits that they always wear. They're always very well dressed with their suits. I want to press play again. I want you to look in the direction of Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, who sat opposite.
Just say, in that vein, a word on the Prime Minister's comments this morning. It is not far right to stand up for victims of mass rape. And smearing people.
Order.
It's those concerns.
Shadows. People want to hear the statement.
Smearing people who raise those issues is exactly how this ended up getting covered up in the first place.
The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, shaking her head. And Labour MPs are shouting shame at him. They're shouting shame at him because he's saying it is not far right to object to the gang rape of little girls. That's what he's essentially saying. Now, I am as frustrated as anyone that the Conservatives did not pick up on this when they were in power. I know because I encouraged so many people to write to them, to contact them. And I think it's clear that they were in a mess and the government needed to lose. They'd run out of ideas, energy. It was time for a fresh start. And that's how the country voted in the main. But to shout shame to the Shadow Home Secretary, who says it's not far right to campaign for a public inquiry. I genuinely find that shocking. A couple of other videos I want to show you.
So much talk over the last few days about grooming gangs, or should I say rape gangs, and Keir Starmer today saying that anyone who's calling for a full public inquiry is jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. Wrong, Prime Minister. The vast majority of people in this country are absolutely mortified by what has gone on, but even worse, the cover-up we've had from the police, social services, and both Conservative and Labour governments. The inquiries that have happened so far have been nothing more than a whitewash. There needs to be a full public inquiry. Let us find out the truth of the scale of this. I'm told that in up to 50 British towns, these gang rapes were going on. I believe the public need the truth. We must have an inquiry.
I'm not a Reform member, by the way, for people who said I would Reform. No, I'm not a Reform member. I stood in the most recent general election as an independent. Reform absolutely wiped the floor with me. And no one even knew who the Reform candidate were. People in the thousands went and voted for Reform, and despite everything I'd done, people who even knew me wouldn't go and vote for me. I managed to keep my deposit and left scratching my head. What I'm saying is I have no allegiances to Nigel Farage, but what is said here, I take with sincerity, and he is the first one of the leaders to come out and outright say that the inquiries we've had so far has been a whitewash. He's the first one to come out and confirm that the inquiries we've had so far have been a whitewash, and the most recent inquiries we've had so far are actually Andy Burnham's inquiries in Manchester and in Oldham. The Telford inquiry, to be fair to the judge, was not a whitewash. I think he did everything in his power that he had as a judge-led inquiry to get to the truth, and he named those responsible. Unfortunately, Telford's campaign is led by survivors. And that's not a criticism. They just come to this with a different set of skills and perspectives. I'm a political campaigner. I come to this with a different set of skills and perspectives, which is why we managed to do what we did to Andy Burnham's review and get it this far. So here is Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, joining with us and using the term whitewash to describe the inquiries that have taken place.
So much talk over the last few days about grooming gangs, or should I say rape gangs, and Keir Starmer
is behaving in this way. I have a letter this morning from a lady who was literally working on Oldham Council, which I can send to you. And in fact, I have sent it to you, to one of your researchers. It was in my inbox, who tells the horrific things that went on at Oldham Council, the cover-ups, the threats. Jane Senior at Rotherham was another one, threatened and bullied. She was awarded an award by the Queen in 2016, and yet Starmer's office refused to meet her.
GB News this morning. A whistleblower from Oldham Council. Horrific cover-ups threats. Nothing to do with me, see? Whistleblower from Oldham Council. The information I've got, and I've been leaking and revealing and using, it would not be possible for me to have shared any of this with you without whistleblowers from the council themselves contacting me with information. Scared. This is a council in crisis. This is a council where a gangster, where a drug dealer, convicted heroin dealer walks up and down the corridors. This is a council with a new chief executive. Oh wait, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So when we talk about the council, what I talk about is the political leadership and the senior officers. There's an entire tier of middle managers and frontline staff that are nothing but decent, and we should not forget that. I'm sorry, mate. I didn't see a message this morning. By the time I finished everything, it was 2:30 last night, and it was meant to be my daughter's first day back in school, but it was a snow day. So, there you go. And this is the question I want to discuss with you later. You're starting to think like I think. This is the question I want to talk to you about later. Yeah. Rape gangs. You'll see Yvette Cooper in a moment use the term Pakistani.
Is behaving in this way. I have a letter this morning from a lady who was literally working on Oldham Council, which I can send to you. And in fact, I have sent it to you to one of your reasons.
It was with Trevor Phillips.
You will be as aware as anybody else of the controversy that's surrounding, once again, the issue of what's called grooming gangs. Dozens of men were convicted within Greater Manchester. Many of the victims have...
Let me try again.
Alleged that these crimes were well...
Here we go.
You will be as aware as anybody else of the controversy that's surrounding, once again, the issue of what's called grooming gangs. Dozens of men were convicted within Greater Manchester. Many of the victims have alleged that these crimes were widely known about. The government has refused to institute a national inquiry. Would there be a case for an inquiry within your area, Greater Manchester? This is something that you could do.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question because it suggests that you don't know what I've already done. There has been and is an ongoing major inquiry, and there has been a substantial report into what happened in Oldham. And as a result of that inquiry, there is a major police investigation. And as a result, there have been multiple arrests, charges and convictions. And that obviously seems to be lost on you. And I think there's a danger here, rather than dealing in facts, people are going straight to propaganda about the issue.
I'm fully aware of the inquiry in Oldham, but we also know that this happened in Rochdale. We also know that there were examples elsewhere in Manchester. So what I'm really asking is whether there is a case for an inquiry that goes beyond the individual local council.
Yes, there is, and I'm not in any way, I'm not directly answering that question. And in fact, I did order that overarching inquiry that you are talking about, actually within days of coming into office as Mayor of Greater Manchester. If we go back to May 2017, literally when I was elected and came in my first few days, the Betrayed Girls documentary was broadcast by the BBC. And I was travelling around one day and I heard Maggie Oliver on Radio 5 Live talking about a major police investigation in Manchester. Yes, I heard her giving a long interview on the BBC talking about how a police investigation, a major investigation into grooming and child sexual exploitation in Manchester had been stood down overnight. And I, in that moment, said, well, I can't hear that and not act on that. And it was on that precise piece of information that I acted, obviously, with the Betrayed Girls documentary as well, and said that there had to be a wide-ranging, overarching inquiry into how Greater Manchester had handled this issue in the past. And that led to a report on Manchester. It led to a report on Oldham, which was requested by Oldham Council, and it led to a third report on Rochdale, which was published pretty much a year ago, and you'll remember the coverage of that. We're now in a final stage of that inquiry, which is looking at whether the public here can have confidence now that things are as they should be.
Just very briefly, Andy, Maggie Oliver, who you mentioned, I saw yesterday, said that Keir Starmer is as responsible for not tackling this issue as any other individual. That's pretty brutal, isn't it?
Well, I go back to what I said before about it's really important that we deal with facts rather than, as I say, political statements. I'm not saying that that's what Maggie Oliver did, but you look online and there's a huge amount of uninformed speculation statements that don't connect to the facts. In relation to the precise issue, as Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer made fundamental changes to address the problem that's at the heart of this, which is when victims came forward in the past, the response, the immediate response often was not to believe those girls when they came forward and not to take forward those investigations. And that's what the review that I have ordered has revealed. And he made changes so that the victims were heard and what they said was acted upon. So, by all means, Trevor, we've been dealing with this issue for a number of years now. I welcome the discussion of whether there should be a national inquiry. All I hear is lots of politicians who have shown no interest in the investigation I ordered, who are now making grand statements about it.
Andy,
well,
I'm sorry to cut.
They should have been working with us a few years ago.
That was Andy Burnham yesterday with Trevor Phillips. Now, the problem these people have is I know Trevor Phillips. I worked with Trevor Phillips. Trevor Phillips isn't uninformed. Trevor Phillips set him up and exposed him to talk more and more and grandstand over what he'd done. It's a tactic he used. Trevor used it well. Andy Burnham talks about reporting Manchester, reporting Oldham, reporting Rochdale. He talks about how he heard Maggie Oliver on the radio, watched the Betrayed Girls, and that's what it triggered it. The review, the investigation, whatever you want to call it, wasn't an investigation, wasn't a review, unless you believe that it is up to the organisations that have been investigated to determine what to hand over to the investigators. It is not a review or an investigation if you believe it is up to the police and Manchester Council to decide whether or not they come and testify to give evidence when they're called. Because that's what happened. They handed over what they wanted the investigators to look at and hid what they didn't. His investigators had no power over whether people came and gave evidence, and many police officers, many council officers didn't. And at the heart of what happened in Manchester is two key issues for me. One is, of course, the death of Victoria Goglia and how her diary they'd hidden. Between the council and the police, they'd hidden her diary. You explain that to me. How an inquiry can go about investigating if a diary's been hidden. You're a child. Children keep diaries, yeah? And the other element is the police operation had identified 97 men involved. 97, just under 100 men. And the council and the police sat down and closed the investigation down. And the review team reported back. This is the investigators. This is the expert investigators. And just in a line somewhere buried in the report, that the minutes of the meeting when that decision had been made to close down an investigation, to turn your back on 97 men, a grooming gang of 97. How many children were they raping? Thousands? A network of 97 men. And the review team just wrote in a line somewhere in it, oh, no one could provide us the minutes have been lost. Thereby, yet again, protecting those responsible for the cover-up. Andy Burnham says, the problem at the heart of this matter is that the victims weren't believed. No. The problem at the heart of this matter is why were the victims failed? And for those of you who are quietly listening in here, from the left-leaning Muslim sort of community, friends of mine, maybe not friends of mine, brothers of mine and sisters, who keep sending me messages, what about this white rape gang? What about this guy? What about that guy? No one is saying this doesn't happen in any other demographics. I'm not saying that. I never have said that. In fact, if you followed my work, you will know I exposed the white councillor Rod Blythe, senior Liberal Democrat councillor in Oldham, Rod Blythe. He was convicted of child sex exploitation. The council hid it, the police hid it, and the newspapers hid it. So don't accuse me of that. My issue here is the reasons why they hid it. And the reasons why they hid it goes into that wider discourse we're having of a two-tier justice system where one community is protected over another. And in this case, the Pakistani rape gangs were protected. Now, what I'm hoping to take people on in is a journey to understand that the reasons why they're protected wasn't just about maintaining community relations, and if that existed, it was a small one. The reasons why they were protected wasn't because middle management was scared of being called racist. The reasons they were protected were active reasons in the system itself because of who these men were, what connections they had to power, and how they had power, which is connected to the postal votes and the way in which politicians are elected in my country. From these communities and the endemic postal vote fraud that exists within them. The Labour Party don't want to have that conversation. They want to contain this because if they have the conversation about postal vote fraud, they are at risk of losing elections up and down the country. And for my American friends, what we mean by that is postal votes, registrations, where you vote before you turn up, and it means you don't have to vote in person. And what happens in my community is men go around, cartel kingpins go around and collect signed postal votes, don't even put the crosses, take them to a venue at night and they barter them. Some people have them, some people already put crosses on, some people sell them. Postal vote fraud is endemic and it gives these people power, and that's what takes place here. That's what's taking place here. Burnham doesn't want to talk about it. What Burnham does say is he welcomes the discussions. Right at the end he says he welcomes the discussions on the national inquiry. Here is a newspaper article from the BBC published this morning. It's regarding Alex S.J., Professor J. Here you go. I'll show you a picture. There you go. Child Sexual Abuse Inquiry Chair urges government to act. And it's to do with her report, the ICSA report, which I'll talk about tomorrow. But I'm going to take you down to this bit here. Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, said he would support a national inquiry into grooming gangs. He claims his review has led to arrest charges and convictions. I don't know of a single conviction, by the way, his reviews have led to. If there was, I'd share that information with you. So maybe Burnham knows something I don't. But ignore the bit here. Andy Burnham has broken rank with the Labour Party. The Mayor of Greater Manchester said he would support the national inquiry into grooming gangs. Andy Burnham has just done a U-turn, and it's a footnote buried in a BBC article. It's not the liar, Andy, you need to worry about. This man knows how to protect himself. And this is his first step to attempting to protect himself. The problem Andy Burnham has is that we've exposed his reviews as a cover-up of the cover-up. And the problem Andy Burnham has, that he avoided making reference to in that interview with Trevor Phillips, is that his own investigators have abandoned him. They quit and left because they could no longer front the cover-up. They couldn't get the information they needed. And they were having more and more pressure put on them by people like me. And Maggie Oliver herself had called for Andy Burnham's resignation. Yeah. Because without Elon Musk, we would not be here. We'd still be plugging away the way we were. He just come in and smashed, kicked the door down, and the world can see what this is. So, Andy Burnham has done a U-turn. Why is it not being reported anywhere else? Because if he's done a U-turn, it exposes serious failings in his own report. Now what I want to focus your attention on is this guy. Sorry, I'll bring it back up.
Muslim vote.
Not.
It's worried about its Muslim vote.
Not at all. We as.
Is Labour resisting a public inquiry because it's worried about its Muslim vote?
Not at all. We, as I said, we've got an existing inquiry where recommendations haven't been implemented. We should crack on with that. There have been a number of other really powerful inquiries around Rotherham, for example, where there are recommendations where we need to see action. And as we've said to the community and the council in Oldham,
gang leaders still living in Rochdale.
We would absolutely encourage them. We would absolutely encourage them to undertake their inquiry, and we'd support them to do that. The most important thing on this issue is that we get on with delivering justice for victims and actions taken to protect women and girls and children from any further abuse. And that is what the Prime Minister's focused on. Jess Phillips, as the Victims Minister, has spent her life and career supporting victims of violence against women and girls.
That's why you would have thought that a public inquiry would be
passionate about and committed to this.
It sounds like you would be wanting to commit to a public inquiry.
The problem with public inquiries is they take a hell of a lot of time. We've had an inquiry nationally. We've had a series of local inquiries.
You can't take too long to find justice for teenage girls who've been gang raped. Doesn't matter how long it takes. These victims have been horribly let down.
That's why we've got to get on with it.
They deserve justice. This could have been going back to the 1980s. It's carrying on now. You need answers, so you should have a public inquiry.
They do deserve justice. That is what the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and the Victims Minister are all focused on. We've had plenty of recommendations, many of which have not been enacted by our predecessors. We're going to get on with the job to deliver justice for victims and to protect people from becoming future victims.
Okay.
That is our focus. This is something the Prime Minister and the Victims Minister gave their professional lives to before entering politics, and that's why they're showing the level of drive and commitment now. As
justice for victims and to prevent children from becoming future victims. West Strettinger. I'm not a violent man. So I'm reading some of the comments, but I do understand there's a face there, isn't there? You could see the reporter's shock on her face when he claimed his defence against a public inquiry. His first defence was it would take too much time. That's right, a government minister claimed as his defence that justice would take too much time, so they were going to do something else. Then he talks about what that justice looks like. I'm not sure what justice for survivors looks like, other than going and arresting and convicting the men that groomed and gang raped them. What, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? They're not going to find them. And I'll tell you why they're not going to find them. There is the grooming and gang rape operates in 3 stages. The first stage are those who pick up the girls, who build relationships with the girls. Whether it's as boyfriends, whether it's just someone giving them gifts. The second phrase is the immediate circle that those girls are then introduced into, and where they think they're making lifestyle choices or sleeping with men and all the rest of that, in that network. You've seen convictions of the first, you've seen fewer convictions of the second. I've yet to see a single conviction of the third tier. And that third tier is when these girls are then trafficked in the same way that heroin is peddled. And the customers that have been sat in the lobbies of hotels, the waiting rooms of takeaways, whilst there's a dirty mattress upstairs. Not one of those men have ever been convicted. I've not come across a single one of those men. They're in the thousands, tens of thousands. Now, I'm not making this up. They're in the thousands. They're in the tens of thousands. We need an inquiry that exposes all of this and documents what is a national shame. And if this minister, who was first clearly asked, is the Labour Party worried about its Muslim vote? Do you know how relieved I was here to hear that being asked on national television? Because that's what I've been saying from the outset as one of the reasons why they were protected. And that has now also entered the national discourse. And he says, we're going to do something about the reasons why these girls. Well, there's 3 sides of this, isn't there? There's one side as to the institutions who are meant to protect these girls. The other side is the girls themselves and young people themselves, and help raising awareness and protecting them so they can protect themselves. But the third side, Wes, my lad, is the Pakistani community, because we're talking about predominantly Pakistanis here. The Pakistani communities, where the attitudes towards these girls, the belief system, is so prejudiced that they believe that these girls deserve what they get. As was evidenced in Daddy's testimony, where he clearly articulated that the girls were whores, they knew what they were doing, they were asking for it, they deserved it. That's in the legal transcripts. I'm not making that up. And that attitude existed across the board. Now, where does that come from? And are you prepared to challenge that? I bet my last penny that the Labour Party are not prepared to challenge that, because if they did challenge that, they would destroy the Muslim vote. If they put their hand up and said, There is a problem in Britain's Pakistani communities, or Britain's Muslim community, however, whatever label they want to give it, that results in a negative opinion of working class white girls that leads these individuals, specific individuals, minority of individuals, doesn't matter how you articulate it, to do heinous acts against these children. And we must identify what these are and deal with them. I know what they are now to deal with them, and I'll tell you later. I'll tell you another day. But this Labour Party has not got the courage to say that. And I doubt the Conservatives, even though they're now starting to grandstand, or even if Reform have stopped to understand it. Which is why, for the question that was asked, why are you waiting for the government to launch an inquiry? Reform, the Conservatives, instead of arguing amongst themselves, have the power to launch their own independent investigation. I spoke with Rupert Lowe last week. I offered my help to inform and shape that. He's not got back to me. I have no issue with him not getting back to me. He's a busy man. But I need you to know that you don't have to go and bash your head against a brick wall. There is a way to circumnavigate this. And it's whether the leaders of the opposition parties genuinely want to deal with this or want to beat Labour up with it. Now, you can beat Labour up with it afterwards. So there is a way. It's whether they have the will. But this man isn't being truthful. Because what he avoids throughout in his interview is any reference to going after those who were involved in the cover-up. I've seen a friend of mine turn up. I like to say hello to her every time I see her, because I don't see her enough in real life. Show us her name. Oh, I can't find it now. I thought my friend Jackie Martin was here. So if you're here, Jackie, do say hello again. I was looking for your comment that came up. And I'll tell you a silly story about Jackie and I, for those of you who haven't heard it. But let's see if she says hello again. He avoids, doesn't he? He avoids making reference to going after the politicians. But you need to understand, it doesn't matter that we are not being, oh, look, it was him who did it, those guys are front and centre, they need a pat on the back. It doesn't matter, people. Because in the same way, we're the council dancing to our tune, with the help of others, we now have a government that is dancing to our tune. That is the power we have. We now have a government that is dancing to our tune.
Prime Minister, Home Secretary and Victims Minister.
She's here. The first time, and one of the few times, I think I can count them on one hand, that I was ever beaten up by my dad was because of Jackie Martin. We were 4 years old, and she had a nice helmet. I think it was a fireman's helmet or a police helmet, or maybe one of each. And I wanted it. So we had a fight, and I took it. And I went off down the street, smiling, Next thing you know, I'm getting levered by my dad. It was the one time I've ever, and the only time I've ever had a fight with a girl. So, during the election, I popped in. She was on the street where we grew up. Her dad still lives there. And we said hello. And I met her daughter. I met her daughter not long ago, who's very educated, isn't she, Jackie? Well done. Very educated. Yes. He was an interesting man for sure, Jackie. Okay. Kemi Badenoch. The new leader of the Conservative Party. I was serious when I said it's time to get justice for victims, so on Wednesday Conservatives will put forward an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing Bill to require a full national inquiry into the rape, gangs, grooming scandal. The amendment will be selected. I hope MPs from all parties will vote to support it. So on Wednesday, we are having a vote in Parliament for a public inquiry. Now don't worry about why Oldham isn't specific. We'll get to that, and if I believe we can do what I think we can do, we can inform and shape that so it exposes Oldham in the way we need to, and I will write to them and demand my testimony is heard once we get there. So, on Wednesday, there will be a vote in Parliament for a national public inquiry into the rape, gangs and grooming scandal. Win or lose, do you see what we've done? Have you stopped to appreciate what we've done? For those of you who didn't know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't understand. We've been losing votes forever. It doesn't matter. It's the counterpunch that'll come if we do lose the vote. It'll be far worse than them winning the vote. This is the bit I don't agree with, because it makes it more difficult for us. I want all those to be charged and wherever possible deported. What are you going to deport? Have you stopped to check the demographics of those involved consistently? They're UK born. And it plays into the hands of those who want to try and demonise us as far right. Now, I'm happy to deport foreign-born criminals. But I wouldn't just have it to grooming gangs. I'd have it across the board. Caught with a knife, you're a foreign-born criminal in terms of you're not a UK national. You've come here in some sort of visa. Off you go. The Albanian gangs, off you go. So no. We need to remain focused. And very, very specific and targeted and focused. We've got to a place where in Parliament there will be a vote for a full national inquiry into the Pakistani rape gangs. If I was a drinking man, I'd be having a drink. I'll have a sip of my Vimto. Okay. I want to show you a couple more videos. Just give me 1 second. Let me just stretch my legs. We've been here for an hour and a half nearly. If you find value in my work, And the information I send away, I share it. Please, I am 100% community funded. The lights here, I'm looking at it. It's costing me money to run it. I just scrape by every month. I'm grateful to those of you who came along yesterday. So if you haven't supported me this week, or if you've not supported me, please do consider buying me a coffee. Click on that PayPal link, or just using one of the super chats here. I'm just going to go and get a drink, and I will come back. And that is it. 6 years, my brother. Let me come back. Yeah, listen to this song again.
Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your
Don't mind me, you listen to the song. I'll have a Kit Kat. I'll be back for you in a second.
when the truth becomes so easy to disguise. You get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, and we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You won't wanna where it's all gonna end, yeah. You think we ever want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise. You get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Want somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy. Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda.
Barefaced lies. That's where we were at the time when we were campaigning away. There was even a song produced to do with the first leader of Oldham Council. I showed you the video yesterday. He stood up and called it all barefaced lies in the council meeting. I want to make a link to this So the Labour Party put out a video today with some horrific music where the lyrics are about getting girls drugged up and, how can I politely put it, aggressively having sex with them. The Labour Party used a song with those lyrics. Some of you, and they released it on the day this is going out. The council leader we got rid of, Sean Fielding, the first one. When we forced him to confirm he was going to launch an internal investigation, even that first step, at the same time he issued the statement, he went on social media, on Twitter as it was known then, X, and posted a picture of his girlfriend holding up his grubby, ripped underpants. This is the leader of Oldham Council sharing his sexual fantasies. It wasn't a bad taste joke. What it really was a message to all the survivors who might be coming forward to give testimony and all of that. And fast forward a few years, and the Labour Party happened to release a song that they've not checked the lyrics for. I'm going to do it this way. So this was a document that we produced for a political group called the Royton Independents. They got elected off the back of this, where they were going to campaign for a public inquiry. Of course, once they got in, they backstabbed us, and that's a different story. But it talked about the difference between an assurance review, these reviews, and a public inquiry. It's a document I'll just share. I'll put it on Twitter, or I'll put it on somewhere. You can just download it and read it yourself. We took some time doing it, but it shows why the government are so reluctant for public inquiries, because of the powers they have. Public inquiry, the reluctance of a public inquiry isn't because it will take too long. A public inquiry is an official investigation. An assurance review, so these internal evaluations, is an evaluation or an assessment. Here you can see clearly the difference between a public inquiry and an internal inquiry. They don't want you to know this information. They don't want you to have this information. They don't want you to take the time to understand this information. I do. So when they refuse a public inquiry, but say, oh, but you can have one of your own local ones, you need to understand that conducting a local inquiry is with your hands tied behind your back, blindfolded, and with your pants round your ankles. So I'll share that. I want to play 2 videos, and I want to get to Yvette Cooper. You ready?
The publication of that report 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a number of victims, and they came forward and ran me that week. The victims that were referenced in the report, but also other victims of CSE in Oldham, and speaking to those people and how it has affected their lives, and they were. You can't say it's destroyed their lives, because the people I spoke to, it hasn't, but it has had an impact into adulthood.
Everybody knows we are.
The public.
This is Amanda Chaddison, the leader of Oldham Council. We're voting for we're voting for an inquiry. We're lobbying. The public gallery is packed. They'd put up fences, kept the fences there to herd us like cattle. And Amanda Chadderton, you hear her correctly, you can't say it's destroyed lives. So this is the previous leader of Oldham Council saying you can't say being groomed and gang raped by 3-4 men at a time destroyed lives. I'll play it again, you listen to it.
Of that report 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a number of victims and they came forward and ran me that week. The victims that were referenced in the report, but also other victims of CSE in Oldham, and speaking to those people and how it has affected their lives. And they were, you can't say it's destroyed their lives, because the people I spoke to, it hasn't, but it has had an impact into adulthood.
You can't say it's destroyed their lives. Former leader of Oldham Council. We campaigned, we removed her. The police arrested me, trying to stop me campaigning, wanted to put me in prison to stop me from campaigning. Ignored them. Went back out that evening and we got rid of her. We got elected independents who then betrayed us. But we keep moving forward. We keep moving forward. And look where we are now. A vote in Parliament on Wednesday. Another snippet from Amanda Chadderton.
Everybody knows we are going to vote against this motion. We voted against it last time, and we're open about what our position is on this. And Councillor Barnes and I suppose Councillor Hoban have said it. Councillor Barnes and Councillor Hoban have said it. And we're all elected, and the reality is, I make a decision and we make a decision on what we choose to do. And of course, I'm not the judge and jury of whether that'll be a successful decision or not. And next May, the people of Brighton will decide whether we should do that or not. So just in terms of, the video that has circulated on Facebook. So, as I said there, I have spoken to some victims. So, sit down. So, the video.
It's a survivor screaming. Children being gang raped. We are going to vote this motion down. Voted down a motion for a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape. We didn't have the numbers at the time. We took out Amanda Chadderton. When we took out Sean Fielding, he went to work for some corporate organisation and got took care of by the Labour Party and ended up as a councillor in Bolton. When he campaigned to get elected, he hid the fact that it was the former chief executive of Oldham. The former council leader of Oldham. Amanda Chadderton, we get rid of. I want you to watch this video as I tie it all together.
Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Labour lot over there are banging on about playing politics with this important issue. But the last time I attended a debate on child rape gangs, there was just one Labour backbencher turned up. They should hang their heads in shame. But will the Home Secretary agree with me that we need a specific inquiry into why young British white girls are being systematically raped by men of Pakistani heritage?
Secretary.
We need to make sure that young people, that children are being protected. These are vile crimes against children, and across the country we have seen young girls, we have seen teenagers, and we have seen young boys who have been exploited in the most cruel and horrendous way by perpetrators. We have seen the abuse by Pakistani heritage gangs, paedophile gangs operating online. We have seen abuse in communities and institutions and in family homes. All of those crimes are truly horrendous. It's why after the Rotherham inquiry in 2014, when we saw the appalling abuse, including by a Pakistani heritage gang in that case, I called for the duty to report. I called for the law to be changed so that it was a responsibility on public servants to report child abuse and that it would be an offence to cover up child abuse. The government that he was part of for many years failed to bring that duty to report in. They failed to do so, and we have lost a decade. We have to change the law. We have to make sure that we go after abuse without fear or favour wherever it is found, in order to get justice for victims, protection for victims, and make sure that dangerous perpetrators end up behind bars.
It's good. You should be clapping, every one of you. It's good. The Reform MP has just got the Home Secretary to repeatedly use the term Pakistani heritage gangs. It doesn't matter she's conflated with a whole host of there's other gangs as well we need to consider. No, it doesn't matter. She's identified them as a subsect in Parliament. She'd made reference to Pakistani heritage gangs. Of course she's fake, it doesn't matter. We're manoeuvring pieces here on a board, and we're countering pieces. I know she's vermin, don't worry about that. But I've got that vermin just to say exactly what I wanted her to say. The Home Secretary is now saying what we have been saying in Parliament. And it gets worse. The Home Secretary is talking about the duty to report child abuse. The duty to report child abuse. So if you're in public office, whether you're a politician, a council officer, whatever, you've got a duty to report. Sorry, I didn't put this in the right place. Here is her sidekick, Minister Jim McMahon, whilst leader of Oldham Council. You can see it from the BBC journalist Kevin Fitzpatrick. I said it yesterday, I'll show it again, to Jim McMahon. And that email confirms the complicity of covering up and not reporting. So if they're going to vote through a duty to report, we have the evidence that their own MP, the own Secretary of State, one of the most senior ministers in this country, was involved in the cover-up of grooming and gang rape of children. It doesn't matter what he says afterwards. I've seen him ranting and crying on social media. The evidence is he was involved in a cover-up because it's here in black and white, or black and with yellow highlighted. We agreed not to broadcast anything after you told us that knowledge about the activities at these clubs was very limited. It doesn't matter. What's very limited? 1 girl got groomed and gang raped? 10 girls got groomed and gang raped? There's only 1 club? There's only 5 clubs? Neck deep in it. Absolutely neck deep in the cover-up. And that's why this man McMahon should, well, it doesn't matter. Because if it wasn't for Jim McMahon, none of this would have blown up. He is currently hated in the Labour Party. Because if it wasn't for Jim McMahon and what he did here, and what he did to me, none of this would have escalated in the way it has, where it is now global news. So Amanda Chadderton voted down an inquiry. We took her out. You've just seen Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. Talking about a duty to report. And we've removed the council leader who acknowledges herself, stands up in the council chamber and says they're going to vote this motion down. And now we know that the cover-up is real and all the rest of that, and we've got Burnham on that journey. You ready? There I was, minding my own business, nibbling on my samosas, when someone sent me this. 3 months ago, I secured my new position as campaigns manager for Yvette Cooper MP. So we removed the council leader who's responsible for trying to help cover up the grooming and gang rape of children, the third council leader in a row. And the Labour Party give her a job as the campaigns manager for the now Home Secretary. And if there was any doubt, here's an official document from Parliament that I've gone and found. And you go down. Do, 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 do. I had it here before. Where's it gone? Is it this document? Is it gone? No, I've got it. Hold on, I've seen it. I've seen the document I want. Introduction to Staff Register. Register of Interest Members, Secretaries and Research Assistants. For Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, works in her office, is Amanda Chadderton Battle. That's Amanda Chadderton. So, people, the leader of Oldham Council that we removed for her role in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in our town and her active refusal to support a public inquiry, who says you can't say grooming and gang rape didn't destroy lives, was rewarded by the Labour Party to go and work for Yvette Cooper, who is now the Home Secretary. Do you really believe Yvette Cooper didn't know? Do you see how deep this scandal really goes? There you go. My name is Raja MIAH. It was a pleasure. I'm here for some questions and I'll look at the comments before I sign off for the evening. So please do ask me some questions. It's not even funny, is it? I know it's funny, but it shouldn't be funny, should it? It's outrageous, isn't it? That a woman who voted down in the council where this scandal started as the council leader and said you can't say it didn't destroy lives, you can't say it destroyed lives, now works for the Home Secretary. Thank you. I enjoyed Tusi. I enjoyed that. It is. Steve, the corruption is indeed mind-blowing. It is criminal, mate. My own thoughts. The best scenario is to see how people speak before the vote and whether we can get Reform and the Conservatives on the same page, because they'll need to be on the same page, and see which of the MPs vote against it, particularly in the 50 towns and cities that have been identified where these grooming gangs operated. I'm particularly interested in seeing how Jeremy Corbyn and the Pakistani sectarians vote. Remember, there's now some pro-Palestinian MPs. They're not pro-Palestinian MPs, they're Pakistani sectarians. We have them in Oldham. I don't think we'll win the vote, but I'm prepared not to win the vote and to do what needs to come next. What I really need, and for those of you here, is if Reform are serious about this, then at some point they need to understand and appreciate there's a brown-faced ethnic lad from a northern mill town who manoeuvred all of this and got it to where it is, and we won't get the outcome we need without supporting him. It's the same with the Conservatives. In fact, I invited Kenny Badenoch to Oldham. She's not responded, but he invited her to Oldham. So if you're serious about this, come to Oldham. My friend Lewis Quigg, I think, is on GB News tomorrow. So they'll speak to Lewis Quigg tomorrow on GB News. And it's all right, Tracy. It genuinely is all right. You can't make it up, can you? Steve Kenyon's been banned from the council meeting. He went to the last meeting. Steve, you don't understand. There's a council meeting on the 20th in Oldham. All of you who can go should go. They closed the council meeting down before Christmas on purpose to sabotage the meeting. It was one of the Arud Shah's inner circle councillor called Mark Hinds. We call him Mincy Boy, a turncoat, who's been sending nasty emails out. I think one of them went to Reform, went to Mr. Tice. I don't think Mr. Tice took kindly to the likes of Mincy Boy sending him threats not to come to Oldham. There's a council meeting on Monday the 20th. We have a duty and a responsibility to be there. They don't want us there. They've done everything to discourage us from being there, but this is our town, these are our people, these are our children. And now we're not just fighting for our children in our town, we're fighting for children across the entire country. And even the people who don't know us, who don't realise what's gone on, it doesn't matter. We have led this, and without us, this will all collapse and it'll go back to normal. This is not Telford. This is not Rotherham. This is not Kirklees, Newcastle, Cardiff, wherever else. This is Oldham, where we have a team of us who've gone on a journey together. We're politically educated. We're savvy to the tactics, and we have repeatedly beaten them at their own game, were on Wednesday afternoon in the Houses of Parliament. They will be having a vote on Pakistani rape gangs. Never let it be said that when our moment came, we looked the other way and we surrendered our children. Very good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.